20 years. 20 years ago today, for all my caffeine addicts, Starbucks started selling Frappuccinos. The George Foreman grill was introduced 20 years ago. And Windows 95 was released. But most impressive of all, the first Kootenai County Human Rights Banquet took place 20 years ago today. 20 years, 2 decades. That deserves a round of applause. What doesn't deserve a round of applause is the fact that today, 20 years later, there is still a need for the task force itself. We still have work to do. And as always, some of that work begins tonight with this wonderful rainbow collection of colors, genders, ethnicities, ideologies, preferences coming together to celebrate the efforts of making change. And that, again, deserves a round of applause. And before you stop clapping, I'd like you just to stand up and look to your left and to your right and acknowledge your neighbors that came out here today to support human rights. So stand up and give your neighbors a round of applause for being here tonight. Good evening. Well, I'll say that again because I come from an African American family. When someone says hello or good evening, they usually get a hello or good evening back. Good evening. Good evening. All right. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to be with us this evening. My name is Philip Tyler. I am the president of the Spokane NAACP, and I am a longtime fan of the Kootenai County Human Rights Task Force. And I want to thank my friend Tony for his gracious introduction this evening. But I also want to tell you what my friend Tony left out. I am the son of a single mother who raised 4 children after divorce on public assistance and housing assistance. I have gone from food stamps to a food critic and back again. I have seen firsthand discrimination, redlining, Medicaid struggles, and gentrification. My favorite cheese today is still government cheese, for grilled cheese sandwiches, that is. And I say all this to let you know that through all of the hardships that we experienced as a family, I still had my convictions and those things that I wouldn't stand for. I think one of the best things we can do as socially conscious people is to pick a few things that we stand for. Because as Malcolm X put it, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And once you've figured out what you stand for, you've created conviction. And with conviction, those behaviors that you won't tolerate will already be answered for you. Now, earlier this month, April 4th to be exact, was the 49th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His life celebration should not be relegated to one day in mid-January. His teachings and beliefs, his convictions, are more important now, more than ever, in our divided society. When we seek justice, we must remember we are not seeking to damage or destroy the other, but simply the injustice. The injustice that inevitably works to keep us segregated, separated, and unable to recognize our common grounds, common interest, and simply put, our commonality. Earlier this afternoon, I was privileged to have my friend Aaron Jones speak at a YWCA event in Spokane. And if you haven't had the chance to hear this powerful woman of color speak, you do not know what you're missing, my friends. But I want to use an exercise of hers, and please bear with me, because I need you to just simply raise your hands to the questions I asked that pertain to you. I also want you to look around the room as you do so. Okay? I'll ask a set of questions. You'll simply raise your hands, and I want you to look around the room at the hands raised as well. Okay? Understood? All right. How many of you had a pet in your lives? Okay. How many of you traveled outside of Idaho for a vacation? All right. How many of you were an only child? Okay. How many of you are one of multiple children? Excellent. How many of you lived in the Pacific Northwest for more than 5 years? All right. And how many of you, and be honest, in school paid a visit to the principal's office? Sheriff, keep your hand up. All right. Now, this exercise was done this afternoon for one simple reason. What did you recognize when the questions were asked, when you looked around the room? What did you recognize, my friend? A lot of commonality. We have more in common than we have that's different. And that's our starting ground, our commonality. But we must resist what is now becoming the normalization of hate. And not just by those identified hate groups, or the extreme right, or the extreme left. We must do self-assessments to ensure we are not, through social media, text, and tweets, yes, the infamous 140 characters, we must ensure that we are not becoming the hate we are fighting. Do not let hate consume you, my friends. As Dr. King said, I have decided to stick to love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And remember, it was said earlier this evening, hate is a learned behavior. Take care you are not teaching hate to those who are watching, including, and most importantly, our youth and young adults, our future. And I know I have some youth and young adults in the room from NIC and maybe some high schools and other schools in the area, so please stand up. Please stand up for us if you're in the room. And I don't need you to applaud. I don't need you to applaud, Coeur d'Alene. What I need you to do, keep standing. What I need you to do is recognize they are watching. They are watching every time we act, every time we speak. And our words matter. And our words must be congruent with our behavior, because they are our future, and they are watching, they are listening, and they are learning. Thank you so much. So our most recent quadrennial exercise, better known as the presidential elections, regardless of your party affiliation or ideology, has shown us a couple things. We need unity and solidarity. We need unity among our communities of color, as it represents being one undivided unity, one people who collectively are suffering. We need unity amongst the people. We also need solidarity. Solidarity as Americans, as it represents the willingness to give support, emotional and material, when another person is in a difficult position or is in need of our love. And the love I speak of is the love that Dr. King spoke of, that agape love. The kind of love that would bring you here tonight. The kind of love that can create a warming effect across the aisles. The kind of love that will help the Kootenai County Human Rights Task Force and across the state line, the Spokane County Human Rights Task Force, the Spokane Human Rights Commission, the Spokane YWCA, and the Spokane NAACP create the beloved communities that we all seek. There's a saying, and I'm sure you've all heard this. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach that man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. The same can be said about empathy and human rights. Teach a man to love and listen to his neighbor, to the other opinion, to the other party, and you feed his empathy for a lifetime. Are you building empathy or enemies? That's the question. I'm here tonight to tell you I love you. I will always listen to you. I may not always agree with you, but I will always be willing to listen. And just maybe we find that commonality that exists in our pluralistic society. Aristotle argued that the goal in life was to achieve eudaimonia, a state in which an individual experiences happiness from the successful performance of their moral duties. Now, I'm not going to stand here and argue with Aristotle, first because he isn't here. Secondly, it'd be more of a monologue than a dialogue. But most importantly, I do believe, and I know you do as well because you're seated in this room tonight, that we do have a moral duty to support human rights. And if you agree with me, show me a round of applause. So you've heard someone speak about Nelson Mandela earlier this evening, and he's one of my wonderful, wonderful mentors. And Nelson Mandela said this: to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. And that, my friends, is the psychology of hate. If I can label you conservative or progressive, Republican or Democrat, snowflake or alt-right, I can dehumanize you. If I can dehumanize you, I begin to fear you. When I fear you, hate is but an emotion away. Do not allow your emotion to prevent you from your ability to separate the person from the politics, the individual from the issue, and the man from the message. We must work to transform the hateful mindset. It is not easy, nor is it quick. Transformative shifts of consciousness require an informed and empowered community that is motivated by justice for all. The tireless work of the task force helps to educate and empower their community, and in turn, raise their collective consciousness. So how do we get there? And what's the next first step in helping change our community? Well, I'm just a keynote speaker and not a magician. I don't possess a magic wand that I can wave and heal all the ills of human society. I don't have the red or the blue pill of the Matrix for you to take. But what I do possess is the same weapon that you possess in our continued battle against hate, and that is hope. If our current political states of our nation and our communities is akin to Pandora's box, remember this, that hope remained within the box. And we can and must use our hope to fight against the hate that's out there. What I do possess is the same degree that you will possess as a result of our time spent together tonight. A PhD. Not the kind you get from academia. No offense to my NIC, my Gonzaga, and my other colleges represented here tonight. The kind we must employ in America today. A PhD, or a passion to have dialogue with all sides, with all colors, with all ethnicities, with all genders. We must also have faith, success, courage, and two-way conversations. Faith, not only in yourself, but faith in others. Faith, as Dr. King, described it, is taking the first step, even if you don't see the entire staircase. But if you don't take that first step, you will always remain at the bottom of the stairwell. And we all want to make it to the top. Success. Success, as it is said, requires that you do things for others, those that may not even ask, those that may be afraid or in fear to ask. Success requires that you think more about others than about yourself. It is this altruistic behavior that can help to accomplish great things, such things as our task force has done over its existence. Courage. You must have courage. You must be courageous. It is easier to turn the other way when someone is being discriminated against. It is easier to shrug it off when someone makes an off-color, sexist, or racist joke. It is easier to say it doesn't involve or affect me. It's easier. But you must be courageous and do the harder right. Let me say that again, because I want to make sure you heard me. It's easier, but you must be courageous and do the harder right. Make an effort to speak up, speak out, and do the harder right. Rosa Parks said, "You must never be fearful about what you are doing when it's right." Cultivating two-way conversations. You must find your blind spot, my friends. You must solicit feedback from those who are willing to tell you if you have any. Because these blind spots may be obscuring and getting in the way of fully understanding and having those two-way conversations. Blind allegiance to a party can sometimes work against our independent thought and limit true two-way conversations. Don't be blinded by party. Don't be blinded by profession. Don't be blinded by parish. Have those two-way conversations. We also must create honesty opportunities. The old open door policy, it's not good enough. Some of us in this room, by position, by title, by profession, create a power dynamic. And it can be all too powerful, and it may even prevent those who really want to engage with you in honest conversations from coming forward. We must create space, time, and places for honesty to happen. Places and times like this, breaking bread together with one another, where we can have those conversations out in the hall that flow into this room here, that require my good friend Tony to wrangle us all together to even get our evening started. But have those conversations. And I won't take up too much more of your time, but finally, we must remember that we have allies of all races, ethnicities, genders, religion, preferences, country of origin. Like those in this very room today, they may be nervous to speak up and do the right thing. But when they do, and when you do, we must allow them and you a voice as well. We must be careful to check our own biases. We must challenge ourselves and one another to think individually and insightfully, listen and learn from one another, but act collectively and lovingly. In the fight against injustice, remember there is space for all of us. We need resistors and engagers. Every movement requires them. Do, however, what you individually do best and what you can. We must never forget that if we do end up, and we surely will on occasion, disagreeing on an issue, we need to disagree respectfully while supporting and still loving one another. For we all want to achieve the same strategic outcome, justice for all, human rights for all, civil rights for all. But we can only do that by consolidating, collaborating, coalescing together, not creating conflict among one another, among party, or among profession, or among parish. If Republican people would talk to Democratic people, we would be a more diplomatic people. Let's strip away the R and the D and focus on these two letters, you and I, and have that conversation. And not just inside this beautiful ballroom, but outside the doors of the Best Western. Not just outside of the Best Western, but down the I-90 corridor. Not just down I-90 corridor, but inside the doors of your home. Not just inside the doors of your home, but inside the walls of your work. And I'll take a bit of artistic liberty and leave you with the good words of NAACP President Reverend Barber of North Carolina. We are allowing the 5 Ps, as he described it: politics, party, parish, position, and profession, to camouflage meanness and hate. It has to stop, my friends. And we must say, not here, not now, not ever. We are better. 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 Thank you.